I'd like to present to you Dr. Dennis Francois, the Central Washington University Athletic Director. Can people hear me? All right? Okay. Glasses, sorry. First I want to say thank you. It's an honor to be here visiting with peers, really, people that are involved with intercollegiate athletics, and we're all here for the same purpose, and that's the student athlete and their experience. So I appreciate that. I want to thank Marco and the conference for having me, Carol for taking care of me, as I'm sure you probably all experienced that with Carol. As Marco said, I've known Coach Jackson, I guess how I refer to him, since I was in high school. I actually wrestled against him, not the same weight, as you can probably imagine, the age difference, but we wrestled against him when I was in high school, small town Iowa, and then I was on the Iowa national Greco team, and of course he was a coach for that team. So got to know him a little bit over the years, and then competed against him when I was coaching at a community college in Colorado when he was at Clackamas. So a long history there, and definitely our thoughts and prayers are with Jim, and I know he'll be back with him. So I give you a little snapshot of literally where I've been. God, I have a clicker, sorry. I'll get it figured out. I've been at Central this is my 5th year at Central. Prior to Central, I was at Drake University in Des Moines, Iowa. An Iowa boy, so it was a nice thing to go back there, but after about 2 winters and 4 summers, I was ready to get back to the West and get back to no humidity and beautiful weather. But I was the Associate AD for External Affairs there. They're a mid-major, part of the Missouri Valley Conference, so back then it was still Creighton and Missouri, Wichita State in the conference, so some great basketball. But if you're a track and field fan, you probably heard something called Drake Relays. When I was there, it was the 100th running of the Drake Relays, and I think they're at 108 or 9 or something right now. But an unbelievable event. We had about probably 26 Olympians my last year there. We also had the opportunity to host D1 track and field championships twice when I was there, USA Track and Field Championships. So I've learned more about track than I'll ever need to know, and but it was a great experience just knowing what it was like at that level, and a lot of things I share with you today about hospitality and how to make it a great student athlete experience. But prior to Drake, I was the AD at Southern Oregon University for about 3.5 years. And then prior to that, I was the interim athletic director at New Mexico Highlands University. I came there as a professor. I usually kind of work this the other way around, but I was a college professor for 8 years. And wrestled in college. I'll start at the bottom again. Wrestled in college at Missouri State University. Was in Southwest Missouri State at that time. And went on, coached out in Colorado, but went on and coached at Loras College in Dubuque, Iowa. Received my master's degree there, and really met some people that were, I guess, mentors to me, and inspiration for me to, number one, stay at the college level, but to go on and get my doctorate. And that's an exercise of perseverance, as many of you probably know. It's not what you know. It's really a long kind of a process, but it's that athletic experience that I had, I think, that really, gave me the skills to be successful, or at least succeed in that area. But I taught for 8 years, so I was a college professor, got my PhD at the University of New Mexico, and so I just go into these situations and talk about kind of the perspective I have as a former student athlete, a struggling one, mediocre at best, but struggling in the classroom, underprepared, and all of those types of things. But went on and coached at the college level, taught at the college level as an administrator. So I think I kind of see it from all angles. When I have student athletes that are struggling, it's pretty easy to have some empathy and relate to them. But it's been a great 5 years at Central. And as you all know, you've got a great president, and that can make or break your experience as an athletic director. So, but a great president, which is awesome. I threw this up here, and I actually just stole this last week. We had a person come speak to our all staff, and he goes, "Hey, a lot of this stuff you probably already heard, but a lot of times And so this was the quote from Samuel Johnson. He's an English literature poet guy in the 1700s. People need to be reminded more often than need to be instructed. So a lot of the stuff I'm saying here today is probably things that you've already heard, but you're like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. And I do that all the time. So I thought I'd throw that up here. I get a little preachy at times, so you can take that for what it's worth in there as well. So I looked at the title for this, and I'm sorry, I got a little bit of a cold working up here, a little dry. So when I looked at the title for today's presentation, I said, that's pretty long. And so what I'm going to do is break it down a little bit. As you saw there, it's developing a student-centered and values-based culture in college athletics. So first I'm going to say, what's a culture? And a lot of people think, we know what culture is within our teams, within our athletic departments, but to really define it, so it's a set of shared attitudes, values, goals, practices that characterize an organization. The key thing is they're shared. And if your culture is not shared by everybody within your department or on your respective teams, how many people are coaches? I kind of heard it all. It was quite a few. Hands? Okay. And not everybody on your team shares the same values, shares the same beliefs, and what that does to that culture within that team. Same thing within organizations. Sorry. But that's a big thing, though. It's got to be shared. And so what do you do to make sure that everybody knows kind of how we operate and what our code of conduct is? The next thing is that I, of course, did these here in Webster, and I saw this part of it too. And one word I thought was really interesting here was succeeding. So it gets handed down. And when you know you don't have a good culture amongst your team, and then all of a sudden you bring in a new, of course I admire, 2 years is a tough thing to, rolling out kids every 2 years is tough to really develop that culture over that time. But you know how that is when you have a negative culture and you bring in new recruits and all of a sudden they adopt that, it just keeps getting handed down. And sometimes you just gotta say, put on the brakes, how are we gonna shift it, how are we gonna change it? It happens at the 4-year level all the time, within athletic departments all the time as well. But it's so important to have a positive culture because that culture gets handed down to those new people that step into that situation. And that's why I think that's an important second goal there, is succeeding, it gets handed down. So the next thing, break it down, so we're talking about a student-centered and values-based culture. So what's student-centered? And of course, Marco said earlier, it's putting the student-athlete experience at the forefront of all of our decisions, at everything we do. Please keep in mind it always comes with a price tag. We know that as well. I was talking to Marco this morning, and I talk about student-athlete experience all the time with our coaches and our staff. And sometimes a coach will come in and say, this is the best thing for the student-athlete. You always talk about the student-athlete experience. And I get it, coach, but it comes with a price tag. And we know where that limits are, and we're going to make larger investments into the program, so on and so forth. But that's a big one there. It's making sure that you're keeping their experience at the forefront of all your decisions. And then really focus on the holistic development of the student. It's not just we're trying to teach them how to do a great jump shot or set volleyball, whatever the case may be. We're trying to develop skills that are going to affect them for the rest of their lives. They're athletic, academic, cognitive, affective, all those types of domains as well. But we want to graduate good citizens. We want to prepare them for life after college. So we can't just look at one aspect of it, that they're a great athlete and maybe not such a great person off the court, field, whatever. And then values-based. So we're looking at values, and this is something we'll talk about a lot today in this presentation, but it's really the fundamental set of principles that guide our behaviors and decisions. And it really, at the end of the day, it becomes your code of conduct. And I'll talk about the kind of exercise we went through at Central, and you'll kind of see where this kind of comes to life, hopefully. And then a big one here is this one. And there's a handout in your packet there that has our vision, mission, values, and I'll break that down a little bit later. But one thing it does, if you have a good set of values and you live by them, it helps you attract the right people to your organization, and of course, repel the wrong ones, or bring the wrong ones along. So, and if there's any time during this that people have questions, please feel free to step in. That's a big one, I think, is when the culture is not healthy and it's a negative culture, sometimes that keeps attracting those types of people. And we see it in your teams as well, and you know those teams that just keep getting those same kids that are just maybe those borderline kids, and that becomes their culture. Why? Because it keeps attracting those types of people, unfortunately. So your role as leaders, as we know, we're the spokespeople for our department. You're the drivers within the department in terms of what that culture is and what type of environment you want to create. So you as a leader, your values are going to impact the way you lead. And of course, the last one there is your actions speak a lot louder than your words. We all know that we can talk all these things, but if I'm going out and doing things once I leave the office or behind closed doors or whatever the case may be, I think probably don't have to mention too many schools, but last year as I was doing a budget thing in front of our university audience, and we were talking about how important it was to have a positive and a good-looking front door of the university. That's what we say we are. We're the front door, front porch for our university. And at that time, it was late last spring, and I said, I think we only have to look at the front porch of a school called Baylor. At that time, I'd probably say Michigan State right now. And what's their front porch look like? And then we had a Gonzaga graduate in there, and I said, Lauren, just like what's your alma mater's front porch look like right now? It's Gonzaga. They just got done losing the national championship, but you know, it's a different look, it's a different feel, and a lot of it is those actions are speaking louder than their words. Baylor can talk and all those things, but at the end of the day, their actions are speaking for them. Their front porch is tainted because of their actions. So, as a leader, it's very important, and I get it. We're not going to, and I'll say this later on too. We've got our set of core values, and we're going to fall short of them from time to time. Every day, probably in some little area. But are you constantly striving to get there? And that's the big one. You got a coach that's just disregarding it and not living up to it, or an administrator, whatever the case may be. Then that's the difference. Somebody say, hey, I screwed up. I need to get better at this, and make a conscious effort to get better. That's the difference between somebody that truly wants to change or not. So the process that we went through at Central, my first, I guess 90 days, there's the book, Your First 90 Days. But what we really focused on is kind of the first part of the strategic plan. And everybody's probably seen this and had it in management classes and things, but the first thing we did, of course, was do a SWOT analysis, strengths and weaknesses of your internal environment, opportunities and threats of your external environment. What things do you capitalize on? What things do you need to make better in order to hide those weaknesses or make those weaknesses strengths? And the external side of things, what other competition do we have out there that we're competing against those threats? And what opportunities can we take advantage of? But I'm going to talk about most of these, but the values, mission, vision, objectives, goals, those kind of are interchanged at times. We'll say objectives instead of goals and vice versa. And then strategies, tactics, and action plans. So my first few months there, we had all of our head coaches and all of our administrators, department directors and such get together, and we kind of looked at what our core values were previously, what our strategic plan was, and going around the room and asking coaches what are our core values as a department, nobody really knew, because it really wasn't something that we talked about a lot. So that was the thing. I kind of shared with them, I guess that makes sense, but is that truly what we are? Is that truly what we stand for? And so we had about 3 months probably of time to kind of develop what our core values were. That's the first thing we did after we did our SWOT analysis. And it was interesting because you got a lot of different perspectives, you got a lot of different feedback, a lot of different views. People who've been there 20 years, people who've been there 3 weeks, and everywhere in between. So you see kind of what is important to you and what we want to stand for, and we start giving different examples of what they are, and then people kind of clicks on, and then people get into, hey, no, I think it's this, I think it's that, and then you just get into that constructive, critical feedback that's very important that we hope to foster within our athletic departments. But what we did is we first defined them, and that's in your handout there. We defined them, we created actionable behaviors for each of them, and we developed a guiding principle for each. And sometimes I think when we first started this process, some of the people said, this kind of, this is something that's not important. But it's what you do with it afterwards that puts the value in it, I think, truly. So to give you an example, this is in your packet there. We have 7 core values, and to be honest, it's probably too many, but it's one that we really feel is important. But this is just one of them. We talk about family, and that's kind of that cliche one as well. People talk about, hey, we're a Wildcat family, or whatever your mascot is for family. But I kind of resonated with people a little bit, I think, when they said, how many people in here competed with their brother and sister in athletics? Had a brother or sister? Raise their hand. Okay. Would you ever wish evil upon your siblings and, gosh, I hope they get hurt in this game so I can get in there? I hope they have a bad game so I can get in there and play. I think you had that pretty competitive too, but not that. And I wasn't sure, so it didn't matter. But we've all seen that, haven't we? And does that ever happen within your true blood family? Probably not. When we get to that same spot in our athletic department, on our teams, then we got something going on. And look at your teams right now. How many times that that starter comes out of the basketball game and she's having a bad game, with towel over the head, sits down at the end of the bench and pouts the rest of the game because somebody else is getting in there and they weren't performing. But that's negative culture. That's not a positive value. But that doesn't represent family. It doesn't represent family. So those are the things that we did when we started looking at these values and tried to pull it back into real life scenarios. Another one we're talking about is leadership. And we all, I guarantee you, we've been on those teams or seen those teams that had unbelievable talent but didn't have the success. And then we've been on those teams that had mediocre talent at best, but they had great teamwork, great leadership, and those teams succeed. And Tacoma is in here, Coach. My first year, we had the nation's leading scorer, men's basketball, Mark McLaughlin, 27.2 points per game. Kevin Davis was one of our inside guys, and he, I think, had led the season for blocks or something in the conference that year. So we had a great offensive player, pretty dang good blocker. We didn't make the conference tournament. Top 6. We didn't even make the conference tournament. Unbelievable talent, All-American type talent, but not there. The following year, they graduated, and they did graduate, which was great, or Mark did, excuse me. But following year, mediocre talent, but we had some good leadership, and placed 3rd in the conference that year. We got beat first round, but we placed 3rd in the conference. But we've all seen that within our teams. And so that's that's a big one. And another one that we do within this one here within family, it has a lot of things in there. Treat each other with respect, accountability for your actions, carry through on responsibilities. We place trust in you and expect the best for and the best from you. And that's a big one because that comes to accountability. We all have that within our department, have it within our teams. Your assistant coach needs to be taking care of business, but you expect the best from and the best for, and that's kind of true family. I expect you, expect the best from you, I expect the best for you as well. And then a guiding principle. So we did that with each of these. And what I do when might be getting ahead of myself in my own notes here, but what I do when we bring people on campus is I give them that same document that I gave you. I give that to them on interviews, and I say, hey, this is what we stand for. This is truly our code of conduct, what we try to adhere to. If you can't adhere to that, then this isn't the job. No hard feelings, no big deal, we get it. But this is truly what we strive for. We're going to fall short from time to time, yes we are, but keep striving for that. So it's very important up front because that sets that expectation for those individuals, and they kind of know where the guardrails are a little bit. And we've made decisions on personnel on these same things as well, saying they're not living up to what we aspire to be. So those people are moved along. And it's, again, if you're up front, honest, transparent, hopefully it'll work out. The next one, there's a million philosophies out there on mission statements. You can read ours. I kind of under the belief that it answers these 4 questions. Who we are, what we do, how we do it, and who we do it for. Pretty simple. I mean, there's some people that should say it should be 2 sentences. Some people say it should be 2 paragraphs, 2 pages, whatever. That's kind of my philosophy, kind of what I taught when I was teaching. So. This probably is the biggest one for us, and something that I talk about a lot, because there's a lot of meaning in that one sentence, but it's your vision statement. You know, it's very futuristic, it's aspirational. Are we ever going to get there? Maybe not, but it's a big one for us. So I say CW Athletics, and for the English folks in here, CW Athletics is a program with which people are proud to be associated. And I showed it to my university president the first time I said, I think this is going to be our vision statement. He's like, gosh, not much there. And I said, try to poke a hole in it. He's like, well, you know, I get it. But it all starts with this word here to a degree. It's proud. We talk about pride all the time. So if we are a program with which people are proud to be associated, it has to start with our student athletes. Our student athletes have to feel great about their experience at Central. They have to feel great about being a student athlete on whatever team they're on, not just basketball, not just football. I'm a cross country runner, and I'm on part of the Wildcat Athletic Department. And if that pride, and we provide them with a great experience, regardless of what sport it is, and treat them equitably, then they will start fostering that pride, and that pride starts growing from them to their peers, to the faculty, to the administration, fans, alumni, because they're, wow, I'm proud to be associated with that student athlete. She's taking care of business in the classroom, she's taking care of business on the court, she's a great person. You don't read about it in the paper, all these, in the wrong side of the paper, all these things, but that's really what it is. So we want to be a program with which people are proud to be associated. And it starts going across the board. So everything we try to do, we're proud of it. Last week, unfortunately, we were playing a doubleheader against a school up in Seattle, but it was at home. And after the game, after the women's game, and we don't play doubleheaders very often. We're one of 2 conferences, Division II conferences in the nation that don't do doubleheaders. We're trying to change that, but on a regular basis. So after the women's game, I was approached by a parent of an opposing team, and she goes, I just wanted to comment about how rude your band is. Yes, excuse me, did they say something that was, you know, racially derogatory or sexually derogatory, or were they using foul language? No, they were just rude. You know, they were calling our players by name, and their coach got kicked out of the game. Kind of ironic. But I reflected on it, and I watched the next game. I watched this past Tuesday when we played our women and had the band there, and I see those band members getting a little bit spicy over there. But in my view, they didn't cross the line, but I realized in her view they did. And then the following Monday, of course, I get an email from an alum whose daughter is going to go play at that institution next year and was at the game as well. And I followed up with a phone call, talked to him, and he goes, you know, they were kind of inappropriate. They crossed the line a little bit, but not very inappropriate. And I told him, hey, what we try to do is we try to create the best student-athlete experience. not only for our student athletes, but the opposing student athletes. Because then this past Tuesday, I see their team over there dancing as our band's playing right next to them. And the coach during the game, as they were chanting his name, Kevin's mad or whatever, he's pointing at our coach right from the bench. Coach, can I get them at home on next Saturday? So I take some things with a grain of salt, but I also kind of realize the spectrum of where people are at when it comes to that. And so this person is an alum that wrote me the email, I talked to him, and he said it's great that the band was at the women's game. That's awesome to see, but it kind of felt a little bit ashamed of some of the things they were saying. And I say it's college athletics. And they say, well, we go to Gonzaga games, we don't hear that. And I was going to say, well, you're probably not sitting close enough. But anyway, it is what it is. But that vision statement is critical for us. And but it all starts right there with pride. It starts with our student athletes. And if they feel great about their experience of being a Wildcat student athlete, it grows. So what can we do to enhance that experience? This is kind of an interesting one, and I told this to Marco when he first asked me to come speak, and we were chatting a little bit about it. I said, this is the irony of college athletics and being in a conference. Adidas doesn't want to see Nike get more of the market share. Apple doesn't want to see, our iPhone, Apple doesn't want to see Samsung get a leg up on them. But ironically, in intercollegiate athletics, conference institutions must simultaneously compete in volume. And that's all of you here. So, and I know you got to compete on the court and on the field track and such, but how do you cooperate to make sure what you're producing, the image you have, and the brand of the NWAC is strong? So what things can you do at each of your institutions to make sure that's improving on a daily basis? So, but kind of an ironic thing there, which is always interesting to see. I guess 2 years ago, I came across this book, and how many people have read any of Patrick Lencioni's books? He does the 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, 5 Temptations of a Leader, which is a really good one to read. Death by Meeting. We've all seen that and been part of that. But he's kind of a motivational type speaker guy, but there's a lot about organizations. And all those other books are kind of fables. They kind of tell a story. And so they're pretty easy reads. This one does not, and I think it probably pulls in a lot of the great things from his other books. But it talks about organizational health. And you talk about organizational health, and a little bit is a big part of its culture, how people operate. So this one here, if you go to thetablegroup.com, you will see some of his videos. But organizational health is an interesting one that I think we kind of started focusing on. How can we be a better administration, a better department, and build our culture? So this takes a kind of a step-by-step process. And ironically, I don't like to sit here and say this is the savior by any means, but I was visiting with an administrator at another university here in the state of Washington, and had lunch with her, and she was, oh, well, we started, really started digging into our organizational health and kind of that, and she was saying these things. I said, did you read the Advantage? She said, yes, we did it, and we did it as part of our team, and our football coach participated in it, so on and so forth. But it's a great exercise in here, this whole process, and we've gone through just about the whole process within our department. But a great book, definitely recommended to read. But if you want to click on that, this talks about smart organizations versus healthy organizations. So, but this is Patrick. I don't believe so, no.
Any organization that wants to maximize its potential, whether we're talking about a multi-billion-dollar corporation, or a department within that corporation, or a church, or a school, or a small entrepreneurial venture, any organization that wants to truly become its best has to be good at 2 basic things. First, it has to be smart. Now, when I say smart, what I'm talking about is things like technology and strategy, finance, marketing, and all the other decision sciences that you learn about in business school or that you read about in the Wall Street Journal. These things are critical. I used to be a management consultant, and this is what we focused on. And this is really important, and it's interesting, and nobody should ever tell you that an organization doesn't need to have these things. But it's only half the equation, and it gets about 95% of the attention for most leaders. You see, the other half of the equation, an organization also has to be healthy. What a healthy organization looks like is it has the following characteristics. It has minimal politics, very low politics among people, minimal confusion among employees as well, high levels of morale and productivity, and not just in an esoteric or touchy-feely sense. People are psyched to come to work and they get a lot done when they're there. And then very low turnover among good people. Good employees just never leave. Now, almost every executive that I show this to says to me, you know, Pat, I have to make my organization healthier. This is keeping me up at night. I know it drives me crazy. It must be killing us. We've got to do that. But then after a very short period of time, they gravitate back to this side of the equation, to the smart side, because that's where they're comfortable. They're like that old episode of I Love Lucy where Ricky comes home from work and he finds Lucy crawling around the living room on her hands and knees. And he says, what are you doing? And she says, well, I'm looking for my earrings. So he asks her, so you lost your earrings out here in the living room? And she says, no, I lost them in the bedroom, but the light out here is much better. And that's how so many leaders are. They're more comfortable where the light is better, on the smart side of the equation. But the thing is, this is not where the greatest opportunity for competitive advantage, improvement, and transformation lies. That's over here on the healthy side. You see, most organizations these days are pretty darn smart. Because with the ubiquity of information and with the internet, almost every company is smart enough to succeed. In fact, I never work with organizations that I think they're just too dumb to make this work. The real issue in most organizations today is, are we healthy enough to tap into the intelligence that we have? You see, the health of an organization is the multiplier of its intelligence. And so my encouragement to leaders is make your organization healthy. Because this is going to make you different from your competition, and it's going to allow you ultimately to become smarter too.
So hopefully you see kind of what we're talking about organizational health and why it's so important. And when things are clicking on that side, you can see you can tap into that other side that most of us are pretty good at. But it's just human nature, just like athletes. They go back to what they know best. And an interesting quote from a former professor of mine at the University of New Mexico, and his name is Leon Griffin, Dr. Leon Griffin. And Dr. Griffin was always wearing Sansa belts, polo shirt, and a lot of hair, a lot more than I have, and a nice gray, fox gray hair, silver fox gray guy. But he would say, people's actions are most consistent when they're threatened. People's actions are most consistent when they're threatened. And we see that. And you all see it. When you talk to that student athlete about something they're doing wrong, how do they react? Or you talk to that employee about something's not going right, how do they react? When they're threatened, their actions, or we look at our kids too. But how do they act? Do they get defensive? Do they get, angry? Do they get attacking type of mentality? That's such an interesting one. And that's something to really observe and say, how do I relate better with my employees, or relate better with my student athletes? And how do I take that criticism? When I threaten them, are they going to back off all, the passive aggressive? Are they going to be, angry? Are they going to shut me out? Whatever the case may be. But that's an interesting one that I think is always a good one. But that's Dr. Griffin, and I think I was looking at your character competition community, your kind of 3 tag words within the conference, and I remember Dr. Griffin talking to me we're in a leadership class, and he said, I have to talk like you actually say it. Dennis, define character for me. And I'm like, oh, well, pretty tough to define, isn't it? But you know when it's not there. It's like, and that's it. When we come across people, interact with people, and we say, wow, there's something about him that is not quite right. And that's an interesting phenomenon that we see. We went through a search for a head coach, and put him in front of one of our kind of major donors because the sport that they were interviewing for was their kind of passion of that donor. And we had two finalists come in, and they had lunch and met with this individual. And he ended up kind of debrief from him a little bit, giving his feedback. And I said, hey, you've been through this. He's at a huge company, does very well. You've hired, I'm sure, thousands of people during your day. You probably missed on a couple if you have more than I care to admit to. I said, what, in hindsight, what were the things that you should have seen but didn't see with a bad hire? And right at, I'll see if I can remember them all, about four things. Everybody goes, not trusting my gut. Because sometimes I just didn't trust my gut, and I went with the decision anyway. Second thing is maybe not getting enough eyes on the person. We know they were going to work really closely with these 4 or 5 people, so that's kind of who they interviewed with and that. And really, their spread is a lot bigger than that. They're going to work with 20 people, but only 4 people really had that interaction with them. Next one they do, they're a big financial company. Sometimes we do psychological surveys and psychological testing on them. And then the other 2 things, he said, they've got to be winners. They've got to have experienced success. And the last thing he said was, there kind of be something interesting about the person. And, you know, it's these things that you do, and you're sitting there interviewing people who've all done it and been through interviews. You know, how are those people coming across? It's always interesting. I shared this with another person, an insurance guy, later. I said, yeah, I identified those. He goes, I would add one more to that list. He goes, not cutting your losses soon enough. And that one's true too. And you've all been part of that when you have a student athlete on your team that is a cancer on that team. It's just all of a sudden, well, maybe they're going to get better. We're going to keep them for another year. We're going to try something. We're going to keep them as a starter. And all of a sudden, you know, the trains, the wheels come off the tracks. But they didn't cut your losses soon enough, and they did more damage by keeping them on board longer than just cutting your losses. So that's a digression there. Sorry about that. So what he does in his book, he talks about the 4 disciplines model, and in order to create a healthy organization. And talk about each of these individually, but creating a cohesive leadership team, create clarity, over-communicate clarity, and reinforce clarity. So clarity is a big one. But this one here is an interesting one because really it all starts with the leadership team. If you as a leadership team are all on the same page, all have the shared vision, shared values, and are willing to work together and work together well, that kind of transgresses throughout the entire department. So this one here, this is a pyramid, and he talks about these 5 behaviors, and he does a great job. If you want to watch some videos, probably better than I'm going to do, I'm sure. But trust, it has to start with trust. And when you talk about your core leadership team, I'm blessed to have great people. Gary Hyatt, our Associate Athletic Director, Kerry Johnson, our Compliance, Assistant AD Compliance, SWA, Tyler Unsicker, our Director of External, Assistant AD for External, and then my Development Officer, and myself. That's kind of our senior leadership team. And the big thing there is that we had to work on, you know, how do we trust each other? You know, how do we get to a place where we're able to, you know, have these discussions about hurting each other's feelings and making it for the better. So one thing he talks about in trust, it's critical, of course, but the big thing there is transparency, honest, check your ego at the door, and get to know each other. And that's part of that. When we get to know each other a little bit more than just our work life, we start to, you know, breaking down some of those barriers. But the big thing there is that transparency, you know, and we do it with our team. Mark and I were talking this morning at breakfast. It's easier when I talk to all my head coaches about what we're doing, even if there's going to be some inequalities. We're going to treat different programs a little bit different. And but as long as I'm transparent with that, then I think they're okay with it. If I'm behind closed doors and then so-and-so tells something, it's, oh, that's not quite what I said, and as we all know, those get out of hand. But trust is a big one. The big one is being vulnerable. as a leader, you've got to know what your strengths and weaknesses are and be willing to hear the feedback. And hopefully you're not the smartest person in the room every time. I know I'm not, just about every time, so it's pretty easy. The next one is conflict. And there's a great quote in the book that kind of summarize it. When there's trust, conflict becomes nothing but the pursuit of truth and attempt to find the best possible answer. So when there is trust, conflict becomes nothing but the pursuit of the truth and an attempt to find the best possible answer. So if we go into those discussions when we have differences of opinion with that in mind, knowing that we're going to have conflict, and that's a healthy conflict, it doesn't get personal, we're just trying to find the best solution. And that's easy to do because we all kind of get set in our ways, we kind of dig our heels in, we know what we want to do, but am I wise enough to listen to what somebody else is saying, give me some different perspective, and make a better decision, because that's at the end of the day, we want the best possible decision. And the next one, of course, is commitment. This is a big one too, because we have all, what I tell our people is, hey, when we walk out that door, we're all on the same page. We can have disagreements in here, and we can talk through those things, but once we commit to something, this is what we're committed to, and this is how we're moving forward. And we've all been around our coaches that all of a sudden go back and say something to their team, and no offense to coaches, something to the team, and all of a sudden it kind of throws us under the bus a little bit, and that's not a healthy thing. There's a great slide or a great video on that I'll show here in just a second. And then once you make that commitment, holding people accountable for what you're going to do, and the process of going through all these things, and the end results is what really matters. So, but if you have all these things, these behaviors, you are starting to build a healthy, cohesive leadership team that is productive and able to do things that you won't be able to do if you don't have trust, if you don't have commitment, if you don't have healthy conflict, all those things that are big. And as leaders in here, you all know that it's tough when you're challenged, and when you're threatened, and all those things. So when you're threatened, your actions are most consistent. And it's a challenge to kind of look at yourself and say, okay, I disagree with that. How am I going to react? And I know at times, I got one of my associates, when he gets fired up about something, I can just see it in his mouth. A little bit of, and we've all seen that, little habit that somebody has when they're getting a little fired up. But that's a good thing to know, but it's very important for us to be vulnerable and make sure that we are listening to other people. This is a great one here, and it talks about the #1 team. We watched this as a head coaches, and with all of our head coaches, I talked about the importance of this, but we all talk about our #1 team. For me, my #1 team is the one that I report to, essentially. I report to our president. I don't sit on the cabinet, thank goodness, but I report directly to the president. So that's kind of my #1 team there. I've got to make sure I stay loyal to that for sure. And it's not necessarily the people I serve. And that's it's a conflict. When I was at Drake, I oversaw all the external affairs. I had about 16 full-time employees under me, and that's the one that I led. But my #1 team was our senior leadership team within the athletic department, the AD and the other 3 or 4 associate ADs. So, and what happens, and he'll explain it, I'll let him explain it. It's probably better.
One of the most important things that members of a leadership team have to do is understand which team that they're a member of is their top priority. And in my model on organizational health, this falls squarely within the first discipline, which is building a cohesive team. So if you were to ask any leader in an organization which team was their top priority, the team that they're a member of that runs the organization, or the team that they lead, their department, many of them will admit, because this is very natural and understandable, they'll admit that their top priority is actually the team that they lead, not the one that they're a member of. It kind of looks like this. if this is the leadership team, and each member of this team has their own department that they run, it is very natural for this person here to put this team at a higher priority than the leadership team or the executive team. And as natural and understandable as that is, it's very dangerous in an organization. Because when this happens, when every member of this team is prioritizing the team they lead over the team they're a member of, the executive team then becomes like the United Nations or Congress, where everybody is getting together to lobby for their constituents, rather than to come together to make decisions that are for the good of the whole organization. Now, when I confront leaders about this, one of their first objections is, well, how is that going to make these people feel when they find out that they are no longer my top priority? Now, here's the funny thing about that. Do you know who wants this to be the #1 team more than anybody? It's the people that work in this department, and this department, and this department, and every other department that reports into these leaders. Because when this team is not working together, when these people do not make this group their top priority, these people are left to fight bloody and unwinnable battles with one another. Because if these people haven't resolved their differences and left their meetings with clear marching orders for their departments, they cannot possibly succeed. So really, why do these people make this their top priority? Because you know something? They spend more time with these people usually. They hired those people. They like being the leader of that team. This might be their functional area of expertise. But they have to overcome that and realize that until they can come into this room, leave their departments behind, and become executives for this company and this team, they will never create a healthy organization.
So where do you see that in your departments? All your coaches. Okay? They're all fighting for their own team. I get it. I mean, you see why it's important. You know, you coaches in here know why it's important to make sure that we do best by them. But what happens at times, and we've been part of it, the athletic director won't let us leave that time, so we got to do this. And all of a sudden, those student athletes go, gosh, administration does this for us. Our coaches are on the same page with the athletic director. And then what happens, they create their own silo, and then try to create that unity amongst the entire athletic department, amongst the teams where they're supporting each other, and they feel great about what the university is doing, the administration is doing for the entire department, is a different story. So a really interesting concept, and when you show it to your coaches, I think they'll kind of get it. I tell them, this has to be your #1 team. You know, if you're making decisions on what's best for your program only, disregarding what it does to everybody else, that's not good. And that was one of the things. We were hiring a head football coach, and he's done a great job. Regional Coach of the Year this year. It's his 4th year. We were looking for 3 things. First, character and integrity. I said this in all of the public interviews. They're looking for somebody that had character and integrity first and foremost. If they don't have that, they're not here. Secondly, they've got to be a person who's a leader amongst our coaches. And when they make decisions, they're not making decisions what's the best interest of the football program and football student athletes, but they're making decisions knowing what impact and effect it has on the entire department, on other teams, and then so an unselfish person, a selfless person. And of course somebody that the rest of the coaches look up to, because on our campus football is a big driver, and it has to be a good person in there. And then finally, got to be a good football coach. You know, X's and O's, great recruiter, all those types of things. But those are the 3 characteristics I was looking for. But that #1 team concept comes into play there. And that second point, making sure that they're making decisions, a leader amongst our coaches making decisions on what's best for the athletic department, not just their football program for themselves. So interesting one though, and a great exercise to take your students or your coaches through. The next thing he does, he talks about answering 6 critical questions. And this is an interesting one. We had a couple retreats within our department that went through this, but his questions are, why do you exist? That's the first one. And what we came up to, a purpose is to prepare students for success in life after college. At the end of the day, that's what we're here for. We want to prepare student athletes for life after college, a successful life after college. C, he talks about not many people have through that many core values. Those are kind of innate. He talks about core values, aspirational values, and a permission to play values. And permission to play is like integrity. Like I said, you gotta have integrity or they're not here. That's a permission to play. If you don't have that, then this isn't the place for you to work. And then the next one there, what do we do? That really is kind of your mission. How will you succeed? That depends on your strategy and tactical and action plans. Another thing he talks about, what's the most important thing that we need to accomplish? He talks in terms of his thematic goal. What's the one thing we need to do or do well in the next 3 to 6 months in order for us to be successful? We always have that one thing out there that we kind of got to knock off and do well within the next thing to take care of. So that's an interesting one there. And then who must do what? Everybody has a role. And I talk about our department, everybody's got a role, and with that role comes a responsibility. And we're going to be accountable for that. Next thing he talks about is over-communicate clarity. And this is something that Marco and I talk about when I talk about our messaging about Central Athletics. When I talk to donors, or I talk to fans, or alumni, whatever the case may be, and our student athletes, it's always pretty consistent about what I do. I talk about developing pride, I talk about our vision statement, I talk about it starts with our student athlete and our student athlete experience, we got to do everything possible to so on and so forth. But it's consistent messaging. And what he says is people got to hear something repetitively 7 times before they really start believing it. And so I know that sometimes you kind of feel like, well, here's this field again. here it comes. But you tweak it a little bit for different audiences and such, but it's got to be consistent. If it's not consistent, then wait a second, that's our goal? Oh, I thought this was our goal. That's what you said yesterday when we were addressing this group. But it's that consistent messaging. And that messaging really comes from those 6 questions. That's where you find out all the things that truly you should be worried about within your answers to that, and it reinforces all those answers. And then communicate in all directions, up, down, sideways, all those types of things are important. And then employees need to be able to articulate what that is. So I think if you ask, and I challenge that, we have all staff meetings every first Monday of every month, and throughout the year I'll say, all right, everybody get out a piece of paper, write down our 7 core values. And 2 years ago, that was a struggle to get everybody to do it. Now, I don't think there's too many head coaches that can't identify those right away. They don't have to write them down. They do it. Because we talk about it, we reinforce them. We reinforce them, actually one of the things here, talks about the same thing, policies and procedures, that they reinforce it in the recruitment process with student athletes and employees. I tell you what I do. I give them those values and I say, hey, this is what we're about. If you're not on board, then this is the place for you. Orientation, we have a student athlete orientation every year, and we bring in our fall student athletes. We've got about 450 student athletes. We bring our fall ones that report early and bring them in to do their own. It's about a 4-hour deal. Talk about all the services and such on campus, but we also talk about our university and our athletic department, our values and what we try to aspire to be. We talk about social media responsibility, all those things. And but same thing with employees, what things do you do that reinforce those 6 questions? And then are you making decisions on them? And at our all-staff meeting, for instance, we have the Wellington. It's our little cat bobblehead that we give an award to somebody in the department that gets handed down by the person who got it the week before or the month before, but it's what core value do they exemplify? And kind of reinforces those core values a little bit. And then, evaluate and make decisions based on those 6 questions. Are we doing the things based on our values? All those types of things. And then compensation, rewards, recognition. And of course, the dreaded one is terminating people because, hey, you're not on board, you're not consistently doing what you need to do. So that's a big one. The next thing I'm going to kind of transition into the branding. And Marco wanted me to hit on this because every person in this room, who do you represent? In life. So, every student athlete within your athletic department, who do they ultimately represent? The inlet. And it's so important for people to realize that every one of these people, we had an attorney come and speak about social media responsibility. come and speak, or actually we Skyped him in at one of our student athlete orientations, and he said, there's about probably 200 kids in the audience, and he said those student athletes, each one of you are a brand manager for Central Washington University Athletics and your university. Of course, I don't know what a brand manager is, but you talk about that everything you do ultimately represents your institution. So talk about some of the snafus out there and show some examples and such. But the brand promise, it isn't necessarily, that logo. Logo's part of it. It's not. It's really the feeling people get when they consume, buy, experience your product. So what do you want that to be? And one of the big consumers, of course, of your product are your student athletes. It's not just your fans and your donors and sponsors. It's your student athletes. So they're built by the consumers, not the companies. We don't do that. We can do things to enhance those things, but that's a big one there. And then their perception is really what defines it. And we all know, what's the perception of Michigan State athletics right now? It's a lot different than it was, 6 months ago. I guarantee you that. But consumers' perceptions, the public's perception is what's defining Michigan State University and their athletic department right now. And they develop expectations, based on your brand promise, what thing, the feeling they get. We're talking kind of those tangible things. When I get a Big Mac, I have a long time, but I'm assuming they still taste the same. And whether I get it in Los Angeles or Rome, it's going to be the same thing. And that's that consistent expectation that people have. And they have a marketing mix, price, product, place, promotion, PR. If those things are not lined up directly, then you're off a little bit. That's why you're not going to see Nikes for sale in Walmart, I don't think, anyway. But it has that certain thing because that doesn't line up with those 4 Ps within their marketing mix. So when we talk about first-class experience, all these types of things, and the student athlete comes and go, this isn't first-class experience. This isn't what I thought. And we're suffering that on our campus right now. We're going through a big stadium renovation and putting in a new track and field bed. But I say it publicly all the time. I say it in our board of trustees meeting. I said I think we do an awesome job on our campus of meeting and exceeding the expectations of students when they come to Central Washington University. When they walk on our campus and see our CERT, which is a phenomenal building, student recreation facility. When they see the new science building, they see the music, our residence halls, all these types of things, we're meeting and exceeding their expectations. But when student athletes come to our campus, say, I'm going to go compete at Division II athletics, NCAA, whatever, and my high school's gym was better than that. I played on turf my entire life. How come we don't have turf? We don't have lights? All of these types of things. So it really resonated with a lot of people saying, yeah, we haven't met the expectations of our student athletes to step it up a little bit. A great quote, and I know we're all in these battles at times, but a great quote stole from the AD of Pittsburgh State. He said, the only thing worse about being in an arms race is not being in an arms race. That's true. And so, for us, we are in that arms race right now. Nothing like the big schools, but we want to make sure that we meet the expectations of our students. And then, of course, there's those tangible aspects, too. And we just did a logo redesign last 2 years ago. So the one you see at the top there, that's a new logo for us. But we did a whole thing, a whole new set of brand marks and logos. And it's the same guy. You'll see it front and center. He does all of the national championships, all NCAA national championships, all divisions, all sports. So the big logo out in the middle of the basketball court at the Final Four, not the big bracket thing. That's not his. And everyone, volleyball, soccer, all sports, all divisions. That's his. Joe Bozak just did a great job. But, that's important too, because that's people see that, and when they see that, oh, that's Central. And even the font, you got to do font over time. You're going to see that. Oh, that's Central. Okay. But a lot of tangible aspects of it. When you come to the gym, what the facilities like, all those types of things are definitely part of that. As I said earlier, everybody in this room is a brand manager. And I say this to student athletes every year. I said, please remember that you are representative of this university, you're a representative of this athletic department, you're a representative of this athletic team that you're on, and you're a representative of yourself. I said, if you take care of that last one, the rest will take care of itself. You represent yourself in a first-class manner, do all the things you're supposed to, represent, with respect, take care of that last one, the rest will take care of itself. It's pretty simple, but, it's not pretty simple, as we know. So the student-athlete experience, as I said, I hammer home on this a lot. And it's so important for us because when I first came, we made some huge equity adjustments. I don't know if I have another slide in here, but we made some huge equity adjustments across the board. And we had basketball, volleyball, and football, as a lot of schools do. That's 2 kids to a room. Yeah, they're going to travel a little bit different. They're going to get a little bit more meal money, da, 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 da. But what that did is that just created silos. It created separation. It didn't create unity amongst our student athletes. And we're talking about that student athlete experience. I don't care what sport you are in. I want you to feel proud to be a Wildcat student athlete. And so we made those adjustments, and all of a sudden the soccer team, the first competition they traveled to, and they're like, oh, here's your room key. You and so are sharing a room. Who else? Just 2 kids to a room. That's what we do. And I know it's all a dollar figure associated with it, but it created a level of equity amongst them. We don't want people to feel less than. We're going to make larger investments in particular programs, but we're going to not at the expense of other student-athlete experience. So when we did that, all of a sudden, our cross-country runners, our soccer players, it's like, hey, you're going to go out football? Yeah, let's go. It might have been before where, no, those guys are a bunch of spoiled brats. You know how they travel, you know where they compared to us, blah, 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 and it just creates that division and contention amongst teams. So that's a challenge, folks. That's a big challenge to do that. But for us, it was a must. And of course, I had our university president's support of that. And it really wasn't. It was like $60,000 to do that first year. So it wasn't a lot. We got 400 plus student athletes, so it's a lot of kids too. So, but their experience, positive or negative, is really the influences, their actions, and what other things that you bring. So when they have a great experience, they're out there, performing well, looking good, feeling good, all those things, that has an impact on how people perceive it. So the things that we can control, of course, are all kind of money things, unfortunately. But it's important when you're looking at how they travel, their meal per diem, everybody gets the same meal per diem across the board. And coaches, the type of coaches we bring in, academic support, facilities, awards. We started doing letter awards for the first time in a long time. We did it about 3 years ago. We have an end of the year celebration. We call it the Wellies. But all of the seniors get a senior award. It's a chenille letter. With their name on it, what year they're on. It's their frame Maverick, I think is the company we go through. It's like $35, and for us, it's an investment that I think is well worth it. They might not think about it a lot right now, but it's a classy looking award, and it'll be on their office wall someday, hopefully, or in their homes hanging somewhere. So yeah, this is kind of what I was talking about that right there. Sorry, I got ahead of myself. But we want to make every student athlete feel valued in our department. And when you start seeing that, then you start seeing that, hey, let's go to the game. Let's go to the volleyball game. Our volleyball attendance, I don't know if we led the league this year, but we probably came close. We probably had 700, 800 at volleyball game. Right now, women's basketball, I think, is averaging 700, I think, is what our coach said at women's basketball. But our student athletes are going out. We really preach that and say, hey, we're out there supporting each other. Soccer games, we led the league in attendance in soccer the last 2 years, led the league in attendance the last 2 years in men's basketball. I think we're second or third in women's basketball from way down there a few years back. We led it in football. But our student athletes and student body and their buddies, they bring their friend, their roommate, everything else. That helps create that better student athlete experience, a better environment for them as well. Social media, and this of course is a big branding thing too, and how do you use it to your advantage? A lot of universities that have more money than we do and it doesn't take a lot of money, I'm sure, but they create actual templates for their student athletes to use on social media. And that's a neat thing to kind of start looking at, saying, instead of having all these one-offs, but it creates that consistency of brand, but also remembers that they, oh yeah, I'm representing our university here. So that's an important one. But education is a big one too. We're in our student athlete orientation, we talk about that. And of course, here's kind of the no-nos of that. And as you probably scroll through some of your student athlete stuff, you see these things, and like, what are you thinking? But it happens on every campus, unfortunately. But the reach exercise is something, how many people have Twitter in here? Wrong audience here, sorry folks, I get it. What we do, I saw this at NACTA, we're talking about the reach of social media. It had all these student athletes, how many, I don't know if it's how many Instagram followers or chats or whatever you had, but they had everybody stand up. So we did it at our orientation. All right, everybody stand up that has an Instagram account, I think is what we used. All right, those of you who have 1,000 or less, or 100 or less followers, sit down. A couple people. We had one kid that had over 30,000. You know, so you look at that saying, boom, by a click of a button, boom, Central Athletics. And if it's the wrong message, it's the wrong picture, and it has some of these things in it, what happened to our brand? You know, not good, you know. Who was doing the face mask long thing, you know, and people with drugs and alcohol, nudity, all those things. Like kids realize that stuff does not go away. But they're part of that. That represents you. You represent your university, or athletic department, and your team. Personal conduct, of course, this is probably one of the biggest things. It's the most visible in our competition. And not only personal conduct of our student athletes, but also our coaches. But sportsmanship is so important. And as I said earlier, I want to make it difficult to play in our gym. I want to make a great environment, make that difficult, but I don't want to cross that line where I'm, you know, being vulgar and, you know, racially or sexually discriminatory. I almost think that is totally inappropriate. But I think when people come to our gym, most of the student athletes and the coaches are, yeah, it's a tough place to play. I wish we had it in our place. And that's kind of what we're trying to create. So this is an interesting one. I saw a tweet out there, and it was some coach, are you a hands-up player? What? You know, coaches, I get there too. What do you mean? After every call. And I usually look at two things when I don't know basketball very well, to a degree maybe, but I look at two things when I see a basketball team. What happens after a foul? Is it this going over to the ref, or is it this as a team, all right, everybody get together, boom. And what happens at the timeout? Who's briefing them off the bench? Are they coming off the bench? People fired up? People down there hanging their heads because they didn't get play first, got pulled or whatever. But those are two things I analyze a lot, and I look at how's the culture on that team. And it's not a telltale, but it's a pretty good indicator. And this last one here is you recruit your own problems. I believe I've recruited problems in my day, but as coaches, it's the same thing. And you hear it as well, so-and-so, da-da-da-da. You recruit. You recruit the coach. You are the person ultimately responsible. So how do we address that with our coaches? But that's a big one when you're looking at personal conduct, for sure. One of the things I was coaching at Morris College, getting my master's at that time, and so I was back in Iowa, and a referee came up to me and said, "Where are you from?" And I said, "Well, I graduated from Bell Plain." That's it. I remember you, and this is 10 plus years probably after high school, maybe not quite that long, because you always said, "Yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir." And why I said that is because I was told by a coach to say that. You know, my freshman year in high school, that's what my coach told me. It was the only thing you're going to say to that official is, "Yes, sir, no, sir, thank you, sir." If there's any argument you got, I'll do it. But this referee remembered it from, you know, whatever years later, 8 years. And so that's it. I hate it when our student athletes are out there complaining to an official. And I hate it when our coaches are, you know, complaining to the official rather than coaching their team. But that's a big one. You know, you recruit your own problems. And part of that is, what things can you do to make sure that they're staying in line and doing the right things and their personal conduct is respectful. This is something I learned probably from my time at Drake, of course, but a person at Drake, Mike Siegelman. Mike was our associate athletic director for internal operations. And his thing was, hey, when people come and we're hosting them, and it's Wichita State, Creighton, people we hate and want to beat, and all those things, Northern Iowa, whatever the case may be, we're going to kill them with kindness. It's the golden rule. Treat them as we wish to be treated at their place. And we all know that there are coaches that probably come to you and say, let's make sure we sit those people over there. Why are we doing that at our place? Why, they treat us like crap and they don't give us towels. Why do we want to lower ourselves to that level? How can we get up here and set a higher expectation? So that's a challenge that I made to our staff. I said, no, I'm not going to do that. It's not the right thing to do, first of all. But I want to set the stage so when our team's traveling to these other schools that might not be doing as good a job right now, they start seeing it and kind of, yeah, we need to step up our game. So I think I got reciprocity here somewhere. But yeah, positive reciprocity. But that's a big one. So do we have somebody greeting the team when they come to their shoot around? Do we talk about the athletic trainers? Hey, here's your athletic trainers are accessible at this time. Do we have their locker room open? Do we give them towels afterwards? Do we have water provided for them? All these types of things that you do. It doesn't cost anything. It's just hospitality. And so when you raise the bar at your institution, and then that coach is going to come back from your institution and go, hey, I was just at Clark, and what they're doing there, they had water in their thing, they gave us Gatorade after the thing, blah, 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 all these things. It's like, well, we need to step up our game. But if everybody starts doing that, it means if you raise the level of that expectation of student-athlete experience with the expectation of your institutions of what to be provided and how to be a first-class operation. And that's a tough one. It costs a little bit of money, but not much. But that's a big one that I know we're trying to work on, constantly improve on. It's something I learned from him, and Mike was just that consummate host, and everybody just loved him because he took care of them, took care of the officials, and game management. He would go in and greet the officials and bring the table workers in, and they talk to them in the locker room and all those types of things. But that makes that experience for those officials, it makes the experience for student athletes, coaches, fans, so much better, and it's something for you to emulate, hopefully, when you go back to your campus. The next thing here is the game atmosphere. One thing that we try to do, and you saw some of the statistics, we've done a great job in a lot of areas. One of the one I'm most proud of probably is we make our games at events. It's not just what happens between the whistles on the court, it's all the other things. It's the promotions, it's the in-game promotions, it's the t-shirt tosses and on the court type of things, the pre-game stuff, halftime hospitality, so on and so forth. But that's part of that thing too. So when people come to our games, it's not just coming to a game, they're coming to an event. And that's the cleanliness of our restrooms, it's concessions, it's all these types of things that matter. And what happens, it creates a positive image of your institution, a positive experience for your fans, a positive experience for your student athletes and coaches. This is my last slide, I think, here. Another thing that I talk to donors about a lot, and it's interesting what's happened to higher education funding in the state of Washington in particular, but everywhere across this nation it's this way. What happened at Central is we're a normal school. So we're a teachers college, and teachers don't have to make a lot of money, they don't give back, so on and so forth. But what we were doing for literally decades, when you got your degree, shake their hand, hey, we'll keep in touch, try, if you give back, great, if not, good luck, go get them. Over the course of time, there's not a culture of philanthropy, but all during that time, we were this to the state, and the state was just filling up our hand. 80% of our budget came from the state the year our president took office at our university president at Central in 2008, a great year to come. 80% of our operation came from the state. 2 years ago, it was down to 18%. or 13%, excuse me. A lot of times I tell people, so it went from 18 to 13, I said, no, 80 to 13. Whoa, I didn't know it was that bad. So what we've become tuition-driven, enrollment-dependent, and that one thing that we forgot to do for about the last 50 years, cultivate our donors and our alumni and make sure those relationships are staying strong, because that's that private school model. So I've always told them, now we're a private school. That's how we operate to a degree. Our state funding is very minimal, so we need to make sure we're doing the best we can to get the outreach to alumni, donations, so on and so forth. And right now with our facility plan, we're a little over $3 million. So it's great private funding for that. We're about $1 million short, about 3.3 I guess we got. We're about $1 million short of our goal, but we're starting construction here in a few months. But that's a big one because people just don't understand that. So we try to relay that to our student athletes, saying your opportunity here was made possible by the people that came before you that are giving back to make your experience better than it was when they came. And so that's that message that we're trying to preach all the time. And one of the things that we really take great pride in within our athletic department the last 3 years, maybe 4, we've had 100% giving amongst our full-time staff. And for us, it's, you know, our coaches, some of them make pretty good money and some of them don't, but we just say it's not the amount, we just want 100% giving amongst our full-time staff. And we've had that, and it's pretty easy when I go talk to donors, say, you got this little thing, really? That's incredible. Because it was probably maybe 40% before I came. Another thing we do is student athlete giving. And what we do is it's $1 for each year you're in school, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior. And all that money gets collected and goes towards our weight room, you know, equipment within the weight room. So they kind of get a message of that. We don't have 100% giving there, but it's something that we've done. Another thing is our alumni challenge. This is our 5th year. We're just getting our materials together now. We'll be sending out here shortly. But now it's shrunk down to 2 months. But it's a challenge that we do with all of our former student athletes. And it's $25 is the minimum gift for that. And anything above and beyond that, they can dedicate it towards their sport. So it goes into their sport foundation. But our former student athlete alumni giving went from 1.7% when I first came in 2012, I guess the year before, and now we're at about 8-9%. And of course, we get more numbers every year, tracking more people down, so it's tough to keep it there. But that's something that we do, and then the team that has the highest percentage of student athletes giving back, so it's not the football team that's going to win every year just because we got so many numbers, it's the highest percentage of former student athletes giving back. It's a $5,000 prize that they get, goes to their foundation account. And then the team that raises the most money gets a $2,500 gift, and then the team with the most amount of donors gets a $2,500 gift as well. But that's our alumni challenge. This is our 5th year of it, and we're making some great progress. The last thing, how many know what this is? How many people here? About 300. All right, excellent. All right. Well, there's some stuff in your packet there. Is it the purple one?
Yes.
All right, that's something that you have at your university, right? You're within the conference. And that's something, a goal that looks like we set about 4 or 5 years ago to get 300 donors. It's $35. And what I encourage, I looked at this, I said, boy, are all the athletic directors on that list? Are all the administrators on that list? And folks, that's one of the things that I know want to do is to make a better student athlete experience, better championship experience for your student athletes as part of the NWAC, and how important that is for this conference and that student athlete experience. So it's a positive one. The brand and all the things we talked about today, that's $35. And I kind of did. I said, okay, if there's I think I came up to if 5 people at each institution did, I think you'd have another $6,300. And $6,300 goes a long way in terms of the championship and the things that you can provide, maybe a little extra for the student athletes when they're there. But that's important, and that's part of that buy-in. And remember that, quote, you have to compete and cooperate at the same time, but part of that, how do I become a better member of the conference? How me, as a leader of this college, how can I be a better member of the conference? And part of that is this financial part, but part of it is all the things we talk about. Hey, how do I make the experience of my student athletes great, but also a great host? How am I going to raise the bar at my institution so when people come and say, oh man, I want to be like you know, Olympic. Why are we doing those things? Why aren't we doing the things that they're doing over at Spokane? Why aren't we doing the things that they're doing over Idaho? Those are the things that I think people start looking at, comparing, and saying, and then just starts raising that bar. I think, oops, sorry. Closing thoughts, yeah. We do, folks, we have some of the best jobs in the nation, and no doubt about it. And we've got an opportunity to impact the lives of student athletes at really some of the most critical and formidable years of their lives. And I tell kids, we don't get you up at 6 o'clock to do weights and conditioning just to make you bigger, faster, stronger. We do it to build life skills, discipline, perseverance, work ethic. Those things that you're going to carry over into the classroom. And I preach it all the time. We're a co-curricular activity. We're not an extracurricular activity. We're co-curricular. We enhance the academic experience at our college. And that's something that you drive home to your provost or chief academic officer. But that's something that we talk about, is that right there. When I was a professor, I had a kid come late or not come to class, and I was talking to him saying, "You're graduating. What are you going to do when you have a real job?" "Oh, it'll be different when I get a real job." I said, "No." And I stole this from something. Responsibility doesn't come with a degree. You don't all of a sudden get that sheepskin and go, "Oh, now I'm a responsible person." No, it's through all of these habits that you develop over the first 4 or 5, whatever years of these formidable years that we have with them. So the things we do aren't just making them better athletes, making them better persons, giving them the skills to be successful in life after college. So a big responsibility for us, but wow, we got an awesome job. Keeps us halfway young. We didn't keep my hair, but it's kept me halfway young. And then this last one here is a Thomas and Edison quote, and I say it all quite often. You know, opportunity is missed by most people because it's dressed in overalls and looks like work. So a lot of the things I talked about today, it's work. It's going back to square one. It's being vulnerable, kind of being critical of ourselves and what we're doing, how we're doing it, what we're not doing. But it takes work, and it's missed by a lot of people because they're afraid to put in the work. Just like athletics, a lot of potential to put in the work to be great. So I think that is it. Any questions at all? Easy group. Well, thank you all very much.
Appreciated what Dennis had to share. I think those of us, all of us probably who have been involved in coaching know when you go to a coaching clinic, if you get one thing out of the clinic, then it's been worth the time. And these are things that I just wrote down real quick. Cooperation via competition. What team is your priority? He talked about giving more than what is expected, and John Dunn gave me a book, or told me about a book that was entitled "Give More Than What Is Expected." An absolutely great book, and I really appreciate that. It's interesting. He made this one point, and I think you know where we're coming from, that we're trying to elevate the NWAC. And man, it's so simple. And it's funny. The dress code or these things that we think, man, don't make a bit of difference. And his point was, you take care of yourself, you don't have to worry about anything else. And I thought, man, that is so simple, but yet seems to be so difficult for people. The idea of creating templates for your social media to provide your student athletes, so you eliminate some of those silly things that get put on their websites. You recruit your own problems. It's amazing. When he said that, I'm thinking, okay, I can just picture some of these successful teams that are in the NWAC or out of the NWAC. And there's very little problems on those teams. And you recruit your own problems. That was great. And then raise the bar to emulate. I thought, unbelievable. So, Dennis, on behalf of the NWAC, we appreciate you being here and want to give you this plaque. It's Greek and it says, "Your Excellence." It's great. We appreciate it. Thank you very much.